Hello, and welcome to the Daily Faded. I'm Hetz. This is where we get faded daily and talk about politics and news. Thank you for joining me. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can see better without them on. Yeah, plenty to talk about tonight. Coronavirus rages on, and going to be talking about that a lot tonight. I actually have enough to talk about an hour and a half worth of stuff because I have so much stuff I wanted to talk about earlier in this week that I didn't get to. Oh, by the way, I will not be streaming next Thursday. I hope to be back up by the following Monday because I'm having my shoulder surgery on Thursday. So, before we get into COVID, it's July 16th, 2020, and it looks like YouTube has just kicked people off for some reason. Oh well. Charging forward. The solar orbiter sent back amazing pictures and measurements of the sun. I think NASA just made them public today. And NASA and the European Space Agency put the solar orbiter up. I think they launched it earlier this year. And the pictures are amazing. There are all these little bright spots. And they're like mini solar flares. They're 1/1,000,000th or 1/1000,000th the size of a real solar flare, but they're intensely hot. And they're little bright spots, and they're all over the place. And they were surprised by how many of those there are. So that's already going to start changing their understanding of the surface of the sun. Very cool stuff. And they're actually going to use Venus to pull the orbiter out of its orbit and send it spinning up on an orbit that crosses the plane that crosses the plane, the orbital plane that the planets are all on. Right, because all the planets basically are on the same level, orbiting around the sun. So they're going to shoot the solar orbiter up so that it can take polar images of the sun, which we've never seen before. So that's extremely exciting if you're a science geek, which some days I am. And anyway, let's get down to business. I hope you're having a drink or smoking something along with me. Maybe drinking a glass of milk. I do think the show would be better with a co-host, so that when I'm smoking and coughing, someone else can be talking. Someday. So the world is closing in on 14 million cases. It'll hit that mark tomorrow. 13.9 million. As of 6:30 p.m. tonight. The globe saw an additional 247,000 cases today, which is an increase of 1.8%, and almost 592,000 deaths. 5,714 deaths today, bringing us to almost 592,000. The United States, we have 3.6 million cases. And the NCOV 2019.live tracker was reporting 72,000 cases, a little more than that, up almost 2%, and 141,095 deaths, 940 today, which is up 0.67%. The biggest number that NCOV 2019.live disagrees with other trackers on is the death count. It's about 3,000 or 4,000 more than like the New York Times and Johns Hopkins. So it's at least 137,000 deaths, as high as 41,000 deaths. Here in California, 364,554 cases, which is an increase of 9,269 today, up almost 2.61%. That's one of our larger days. We've had only a few days that have been over 10,000. So those have been, our highest days. 7,489 deaths in California, 128 today, which I think is also in the top 5 of our death rates. Top 5. What a terrible way to put it. 41 states have rising case numbers. 41 states. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was like 27 states. It was like 19 states. Then it was 27 states. Then it was 33 states. No, it's 41 states that are seeing a rise in COVID cases. And we don't have a national mandate on masks. The New York Times is reporting over 74,000 new cases today, which is more than ncov 2019.live. So the New York Times is saying 74,000 new cases today, which is obviously our record by nearly 6,000 cases. We had 67,300 new infections yesterday, about 1,000 cases shy of the national record set late last week. That's by New York Times reporting. Oh, God. This is... I don't know if I'm going to make it through the whole show tonight because my back is killing me, but I'm going to keep going. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany on Thursday, did you hear this? Reiterated President Trump's view that schools must open in the fall. Quote, when he says open, she said, he means open and full, kids being able to attend each and every day at their school. The science should not stand in the way of this. What'd you say? The science should not stand in the way of this? The science should not stand in the way of this. Lady, the science is what the science is. The science doesn't care whether or not you want to reopen schools. The virus doesn't care whether or not you want kids in schools. The virus doesn't care whether or not you think kids... Oh, by the way, I'm wearing a different gray shirt tonight, but it occurred to me when I sat down that it looks identical to the one I was wearing last night because I have these 2 identical gray shirts that I got at the same time. So I'm not as much of a slob as you may think. The science should not stand in the way. Oh, God. I'm really happy I didn't see it. I read it. Because I would have snarfed and I would have gotten orange soda all over my tacos at lunch. God, these people are so stupid. They're so stupid. They think science is just another, cause celeb, just another fad. Oh, science. The median COVID hospitalization cost has been going steadily up, and it is now at $45,000 per hospitalization. That is the median cost of getting COVID-19. If you don't have insurance, be prepared to spend $45,000 to cover your COVID hospitalization. So, in addition to losing your job and being foreclosed on or evicted, and catching COVID-19, and no longer having health insurance because you just lost your job, and it costs you $45,000. Most of us don't have $45,000 laying around, and I know all those Republicans would say, slacker, why didn't you save $45,000 in case this happened? It's that whole thing of putting it on you. In America, we're all about punishment, right? So if you're poor, we punish you. If you're black, we punish you. If you're a woman, we punish you. If you're Latino, we punish you. If you're trans, we punish you. If you're gay, we punish you. if you're disabled, we punish you. Everyone, you know, if you get old and you didn't save enough for your retirement, and you have to live on Social Security, it's not enough to live on. So you're getting punished because you didn't save enough, because it's your fault that you don't have a way to retire. I submit it is in the interest of society that everyone be able to retire well, and Social Security should pay enough. Boy, that I just got ranting on that, didn't I? Houston, Texas had 40 pages of obituaries. 40 pages of obituaries in one newspaper. That's a lot of obituaries. Texas is, boy, I mean, Florida and Texas right now. But it's worse for Pacific Islanders. The death rate for Pacific Islanders is 91 per 100,000 people. For white residents, it's 22 per 100,000. Damn. 22 per 100,000? Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, Trump bag, douchebag, is suing the city of Atlanta for having a mask mandate, and being in violation of Brian Kemp's executive order restricting mask mandates. No one's allowed to have a mask mandate anywhere in Georgia, county or local level. And cases are soaring in Georgia. And Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's quarantined at home with her family because they all have COVID-19, pointed out that this lawsuit was not the best use of taxpayer money, especially when people are sick and need health care. Good on her. Interesting. Oh, yeah, and the other thing about Brian Kemp, they've limited gatherings to 50 people or less. That's what they've done in Georgia. You can have a group of 50 people over to your house without masks. Have at it. Go for it. They're endangering the rest of our lives. They really are. These fucking Republican governors and Donald Trump and anyone who makes masks political, they're endangering all of America. So CNN reported today, I saw an interesting article on CNN, that top Republican officials, and it seemed like they were mostly talking about like state party officials and stuff like that. But they're reaching out to the Trump campaign and they're saying, you got to cool it on the mail-in voting, because these people are all running campaigns and they've got Republicans that they're trying to get elected. And part of their strategy is for people who aren't going to come out on election day, try to get them to vote from home, because we have mail-in voting in most of the country. So, you know, it's a way to lose a significant vote that you could have counted on before. You could have said there are going to be this many Republican mail-in voters who will definitely mail in and vote. Well, but if they hear Trump saying it's all mail-in voting is all a fraud, now they don't want to do a mail-in vote, that Republican just lost a vote. And maybe that person doesn't get up and go to the polls on election day. So I thought that was a really interesting story, and that was I didn't see that consequence. That didn't occur to me. So that's interesting. Maybe it occurred to you, and you don't think it's interesting at all. 87 protesters have been charged with felonies in Louisville, Kentucky. One of them was Linda Sarsour, one of the co-founders of the Women's March, and another was an NAACP chapter head or state NAACP head. I don't know. But 87 protesters charged with felonies for a peaceful sit-in at the Kentucky AG's house. I heard, I didn't see video, I heard the audio of it, and it sounded like a completely normal, peaceful protest. But they arrested them all, and now they're all facing felony charges, which is outrageous. They were practicing freedom of speech. And civil disobedience should never be a felony. You want to say they were trespassing at his house? Okay, that's civil disobedience. No one was hurt. It should not be a felony. It's ridiculous. Oh, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but Chris Cuomo went viral. Hold on one second. Please have a drink or a smoke with me. It's so inconvenient to cough after smoking. So Chris Cuomo went viral in a video that I will show you in the future when I know how to show videos while I'm live streaming, which I still haven't figured out yet. I'm a slacker, sue me. But this Chris Cuomo video went viral where he's just going, "Are you kidding me?" And he showed the picture of Trump holding up Trump with all the Goya products laid out in front of him, and Ivanka holding up the Goya can. And I think Chris Cuomo, he swore. I think he said, "Are you shitting me?" And I saw the photo yesterday or the day before, and I thought, well, okay, of course, that makes perfect sense. But when I saw Chris Cuomo's rant, I went, wait a second, did I take that story seriously enough? And no, because it's Trump time, right? And in Trump world, we don't take a low-level corruption story significant. We don't take it seriously. And but that's a really big deal. You're not allowed to use your role in government to sell a private product. You're not allowed. That's against the law. That is the definition of corruption. And for them to come out and do this after people are practicing their free right to boycott Goya. In case you didn't know, the head of Goya said nice things about Trump on Monday or Tuesday, and everything hit the fan for them. And they deserve it. But yeah, I mean, if he was on there selling Trump steaks, which he may be by October, there may be nothing left. I can just see it now. Like, Trump senses that he's going to lose in November, so he says, well, we better stage a blowout sale. He'll be selling the Resolute desk. It comes with a free stack of Trump steaks. You get it with your Trump wine, your Trump vodka. Oh my God. Yeah, it's not okay to use the Oval Office to sell beans. They're selling beans. That's what Chris Cuomo kept saying. In the middle of a pandemic, and you're selling beans? You're selling beans? Man, I knew a guy who sold beans when I used to go to raves. Those were some good beans. New York Times, across the United States, many public schools, this was interesting, plans to reopen classrooms just a few days a week or not at all, while neighboring private schools have prepared to open full-time. Public schools, which serve roughly 90% of American children, have less money, larger class sizes, and less flexibility to make changes to things like the curriculum, facilities, or workforce. I'm going to read that for you again. Just listen to it. Across the United States, many public schools have plans to reopen classrooms just a few days a week or not at all, while neighboring private schools have prepared to open full-time. Public schools, which serve roughly 90% of American children, have less money, larger class sizes, and less flexibility to make changes to things like the curriculum, facilities, or workforce. Tell me that that is not biased in favor of private schools, those two paragraphs. It's absolutely biased in favor of private schools. It says, hey, look, the public schools can't open, but the private schools, they know how to open. They're so much better than the public schools. Oh, those public schools, they serve, don't worry about them. They only serve 90% of the population. Don't worry about them. They have less money. They have larger class sizes. They have less flexibility to make changes to their curriculum and their facilities and their workforce. So they're fucked. So why you should have charters, you should have a voucher system and give all of your money to private schools and just defund the schools. It's as if uh, it's just, I hate when I see that. The public schools do not have less money, larger class sizes, and less flexibility. Public schools have their funds stolen from them. And so class sizes get bigger. And it gets harder. And they do become more inflexible. The only answer is to fund the fucking schools, to fund education, to guarantee that every teacher has a $60,000 a year paycheck at a minimum. Anyway, I was just reading an article, but I'm sensitive to it because Betsy DeVos is using the pandemic to push charter schools and school vouchers, and it's infuriating if you care about education. I want my kids in a public school and I want them getting a good education. And luckily, my kids' public schools are closed. I mean, distance learning. So kids are getting their desks set up and we're going to have school at home this year. It's going to be a thrill. I'm going to just come out and talk without preparing because I'll be teaching all day long. New York Times. Ocasio-Cortez pushes Cuomo to back billionaires tax. Speaking of Cuomo, this is about the other Cuomo. Progressives want the tax to help New Yorkers hurt by the virus, but the governor says it could drive high earners out of state and damage the tax base. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has joined a new campaign to push Governor Andrew Cuomo to tax billionaires who live in New York State and use the money to assist people hurt by the pandemic-fueled economic crisis. Similar measures targeting the wealthy have stalled in Albany, opposed by Republicans who long controlled the state Senate, or by Mr. Cuomo, a third-term Democrat who has made his tax-cutting ways a central platform of his decade-long tenure. But the environment has changed. Democrats gained control of both houses of the legislature in a blue wave election in 2018, and the effects of the coronavirus forced shutdown have created a $13 billion state budget shortfall. Thank God that in 2018, they tore up that little caucus in the New York State legislature. I don't know what it was called, but it was about 6 Democrats who voted with Republicans on everything. So as long as something was close, you could count on these 6 Democrats to vote with the Republicans. And in 2018, they all fucking lost, and I think 4 of them lost to very big progressives. So so the New York legislature is more progressive now than it was a few years ago, and that's really going to matter in the coming months and years as New York tries to dig out of it like everybody else. Look, well, let me continue. Jessica Ramos, a state senator from Queens who was among the progressive Democrats who won office in 2018, sponsored the bill that would tax the unrealized capital gains of the state's 119 billionaires. The money raised would be redirected to workers not eligible for unemployment insurance or the federal stimulus. Mr. Cuomo has argued that taxes that target high earners could drive them out of the state and further damage the tax base, a concern that the governor's budget director, Robert Mujica, underscored in the interview on Wednesday. They always say this. That's always the excuse. And frankly, that's why I think we need a federal wealth tax. I think it should be across the board. Um, and I think it's important that you do it across the board so you don't have this problem. But um, look, it's up to you, state of New York, to provide the economic environment that makes them want to live in New York. You know, um, we would see what would happen with that. I'm not sure I believe the argument. I certainly don't believe the argument that all the billionaires would leave the United States if we had a wealth tax. Because I'll tell you what, if the United States passed a wealth tax, the entire world would pass a wealth tax. I really believe it because I think we're in a global moment. When I say the rest of the world would pass it, I don't mean immediately or instantly, but I mean if we had a progressive wave in this country and we led the fight against the neo-fascists that's going on all over the world. They just reelected Duka in Poland. I think that's his name. He's a complete corporate fascist, absolute corporate fascist. Um, so if we had a progressive wave and we passed a billionaire wealth tax, especially if we passed my billionaire wealth tax, which I'll tell you about in a moment, but if we passed a billionaire wealth tax, I think that other countries around the globe would almost be forced to do it. You know, you might get a couple of countries like Saudi Arabia, that refuse to do it. Of course, that's fine. Are people going to go live in Saudi Arabia to avoid the wealth tax in the United States? I don't think a lot of them are. I really don't. So my billionaire wealth tax is really simple. It's called 100% wealth tax over $1 billion. When you make it to $1 billion, congratulations, you won. Now, the rest of it gets redistributed to everybody else. That's all. And I would just confiscate. I would confiscate against all 800 billionaires or however fuck many we have. I know we have more than any other country in the world by a lot. Although I don't know, China is probably in competition with us now. So the state of New York needs $10 billion to prevent job losses in education, healthcare, and public safety. On Thursday, a campaign-like video was released that featured Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, Ramos, the New York City public advocate Juman Williams, and two assembly members Carmen De La Rosa and Yuli Niao. Governor Cuomo, we need you to pass a billionaire's tax in order to make sure that we're providing for our working families, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez said in the video. It's time to stop protecting billionaires, and it's time to start working for working families. Also on Thursday, 100 immigrant workers started a 24-hour fast and sleep out near the Fifth Avenue penthouse of Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, one of the richest men in the world. I think he is the richest man in the world. It's either him or Vladimir Putin, if you believe the CIA. On Friday, hundreds of people are expected to hold a march on billionaires that will end at Mr. Cuomo's Manhattan office. We are calling for a just recovery for all New Yorkers, but right now our system is rigged to protect the mega rich, said Angela Solis, lead organizer for Make the Road New York, one of the groups in the coalition. So look, the Fed, so Congress passed $450 million to use as collateral for the Fed to make $4.5 trillion available to Wall Street and corporate America. That floated the market, which was tanking, right? 2 months ago when the CARES Act passed. The market was tanking. That floated the market because it pushed all this liquidity out into the market. So people were liquid, so it was okay if their revenues were falling. So, and the biggest issue was when their revenues fall, it endangers their ability to pay their corporate debt, which they issue all the time. So this liquidity from the Fed, backstopped by the Treasury Department, thanks to the Democrats and Republicans in the Congress, it floods the market. It raises the market value. So we're in a bubble right now because when that money runs out and corporate America has to start making its corporate debt payments, and the revenues are still low because the pandemic is going on and on and on, there will be more money made available, unaccountable, to corporate America, and all it floats the market. And as the market goes up, well, what do you know? The billionaires make money. So America's billionaires have made something like $600 billion. This was like a month ago that was reported. So it's got to be much more by now. $600 billion since the beginning of the pandemic, while over 50 million people have applied for unemployment, and they're getting their unemployment checks with the $600 boost. You're going to get that stopped at the end of this month, while the billionaires. So the point of this legislation is not necessarily let's install a permanent billionaires tax, although I don't know if it's permanent or not in the legislation. But I think the point of it is nobody should be getting rich right now. We should be in this together, and nobody should be profiting off of this disaster, because people are dying and people are getting kicked out of their homes and people are losing their jobs. And it's fucking awful. And so, no, they shouldn't be making hundreds of billions of dollars. They shouldn't be making it right now. So I think that last quote, we are calling for a just recovery for all New Yorkers, but right now our system is rigged to protect the mega rich. Have you even heard, have you seen a single article or heard a single story on the Wall Street money, on the corporate, the Fed money? There's like no stories on it. There's no coverage. And that's because the data is not available. They're not sharing it. It's completely opaque. And they're not sharing all of the PPP data. It's just infuriating. It's just infuriating. But the good news is hope is on the way in the form of Joe Biden. I still don't know whether or not I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, but it doesn't matter because I live in California and he's going to win California no matter what. It is impossible for Donald Trump to win California. But Joe Biden is the bright side. Now, you may be saying, yeah, but Joe Biden's kind of a moderate, maybe even a conservative Democrat, and look at his record, and does he have some cognitive decline, and so on and so forth, and yada and yada. You might say all of that about Joe Biden, but what does he say? Here's the truth, folks. Should we get rid of Donald Trump? Should we elect Joe Biden to be our 46th president? I want to credit David Dole, who was talking about this earlier today. So I'm not ripping him off. I'm just trying to riff on what he was saying. But he said, you're not voting for who you want to be president. You're voting who you want to fight against for the next 4 years. So do you want to fight against Trump for the next 4 years, or do you want to fight against Biden for the next 4 years? And I would prefer to fight against Biden than Trump. I do believe there's some technocratic skills in an upcoming Biden administration, if it happens, that are kind of missing under the Trump administration. So I will take Biden over Trump. I still may not vote for him, but the fight begins on November 4th to push Biden as far to the left as possible. It's important to put into context. Again, David Dole shared this in his video, but I had seen Richard Wolff talk about it before. Richard Wolff tells the story of FDR's election in 32, and he had promised the New Deal to the people, but he didn't really say what the New Deal was, and he hadn't really worked out the details of what it meant. It was really a It was campaign rhetoric. And once he got in office, the socialists, two socialist parties, the Communist Party, or is it two Communist Party and one Socialist Party? I can never remember. And the unions, labor unions, all got together and presented to FDR that they would either get him reelected or they would see him defeated if he didn't pass the New Deal. And then they told him what to pass. And it started with Social Security, unemployment, the minimum wage, and a federal jobs program. Sorry, I had to go through my memory to remember all of that. That was the beginning of the New Deal. You put people to work, and you guarantee that they're making enough where they're working. Just for the record, nowhere in the United States can you survive, can you get a one-bedroom apartment if you're making minimum wage? Nowhere in the United States. Anyway, so, I want to fight against Joe Biden. My dream is that we get as many people in the streets during a Biden administration, at the beginning of the Biden administration in January, the day of the inauguration, the day after the inauguration. I want to see as many people in the streets for Medicare for all and a Green New Deal and UBI, at least during the COVID crisis, and ending evictions and ending foreclosures. And I want to see people in the streets. We can't wait. We have to be urgent, and we have to push the next president to the left. And there's a small chance we can do that with Joe Biden, that we can push him into a corner and we can make his life difficult. If we can get the Hill to look like it looked during the Kavanaugh hearings, really get people up there. That's my dream. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if the suffering is great enough yet. But I do know this: if they don't use progressive measures, they will fail, and the suffering will get worse and worse. If austerity is to lead the way, and I was shocked, I read yesterday Ben Bernanke's column in the New York Times that basically argued against austerity. But, Mark Meadows, chief of staff, austerity, all the people around Trump are into austerity. Trump doesn't probably know what the word means. Austerity won't work. It hasn't worked all throughout Europe, all throughout the world, as a response to the 2008 recession. Austerity didn't work. It failed. So we need to get out in the streets, and we need to demand change. We need to demand high-paying jobs. We need to demand food and homes for everyone, regardless of their income. Everyone has a home. Everyone has enough food to survive. That's the bare basic minimum in the United States. Everyone has health care and education. That's what we have to fight for, and we need a Green New Deal to fight climate change. I will be back Monday night, and I will be doing this 3 times next week at 8 o'clock Pacific, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday I'm having my surgery. So thank you for joining me tonight. Make sure you hit subscribe and like, and I will see you on Monday night.